Hey, welcome to the Global Village Media Show. I'm your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell. We have another amazing guest here for you today. This is the show that explores the limits of human consciousness, practical spirituality, and we investigate those amazing stories from people much like our guest today. Alejandra Brady is an author and a well-known figure. You ought to buy her book. It's amazing. It's a recount of her spiritual journey, which we're going to talk about today. Believe it or not, this is the title. I just can't make this shit up. No, that's the real title. That's not just me saying that. So welcome to the show, Alejandra. It's great to have you here. Let's
Oh,
find out
thank
what you're
you.
talking about in this amazing book.
Thanks for having me. I know the title is something, isn't it? But
It's
honestly, if
unforgettable.
I had to write a script, if Hollywood came knocking and said, "Write us a script," I could not have written what I actually experienced. So I felt very strongly about the title and I've stuck with it. And some speed bumps along the way because Amazon doesn't like that word. And I'm fine with that. The people who are meant to benefit from the book will find it. And that's that. I feel very comfortable with it and I love it. And I'm glad that you liked it.
Well, it's unforgettable. You've had two mystical experiences in your life that I'm going to ask you about how you got in this spiritual path. But I understand you were a creative person and you had a life before you became an author. Tell us a little bit about how you got from there to where you are now. I understand that. Well, I'll let you tell your story. How did you start out and how did you get to this amazing book?
Sure. Well, I started out very quote unquote normal, right? I mean, I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I've been married to my college sweetheart for 34 years now. So from 18 to 50, when I was at that point with my husband, I was one person. From 50 to now almost 57. The rules have gone out the door and I'm a completely different person since my spiritual awakening. So this poor guy's had to put up with all of that and kind of come along for the journey. But my spiritual awakening started when I was 50. I suddenly had to have cervical fusion. I've got a big scar across the front of my neck. It's anterior fusion that kind of came out of nowhere. And as I was preparing to go into this really major surgery, I turned 50 in September and surgery was right after that. Like in October, I started dropping everything. Things started falling out of my hands. And so I went to
Mm.
go see the doctor and they said, well, it's not an emergency, but it's in the next, month or so. So I was working with a client because I am an interior designer and I've been one for over 20 years. So I was working with a client who was much more energetically and spiritually in tune than I was at that point in time. And she told me a feng shui practitioner was coming to her home. And did I want an appointment? Maybe she could help me with something to get me ready for this surgery because it was going to be a pretty lengthy recovery. And, I was going to spend a lot of time in bed and unable to do a lot because I'd be in a neck brace. So something inside me said yes. I really didn't know anything about feng shui. I was not familiar with it. And I just said yes. The practitioner came to my home. Within 10 minutes of her being in my home, she said, "You are going to be doing this." And I remember clearly just saying, "No, TikTok, time is money. You're costing a fortune. Just tell me what I need to do to get ready for this surgery." I definitely just had tunnel vision. And I mean, granted, that seems fair, right? I was about to undergo this really big surgery. And by the way, I just recovered from lower lumbar fusion that had taken place 3 years prior.
Wow.
So I was just not prepared for all of this. So anyway, I did what she suggested. I had a beautiful and seamless recovery. And as I felt better, I started doing more and more to the house. And I kind of became my own guinea pig first. When I completed my house and my house was energetically aligned, I reached out to her and I said, "You remember when you said that I should be doing this?" I said, "I want to do this. I want to do this for my clients. I want to add this as a modality to my interior design business because any of us who've been doing something for a long time, you should be pretty good at it. But to be able to make someone's home or office space, whatever they present to me, energetically aligned with them and beautiful, I mean, how amazing does that feel? And it just felt very purposeful to me. So feng shui is my gateway drug into my spiritual opening, my spiritual journey, everything else. Because once my house was aligned, I sort of got this nudge. Well, you should try meditation. I'm like, huh, all right, well, I never thought of that. And I started learning to meditate. I took a course on how to meditate while I was also studying to become certified in feng shui. And it was on day one of my very first super in-depth meditation that I was trying on my own. And I was in my beautiful space in my house that Archangel Michael showed up and said, "You will be writing a book." And just like my feng shui practitioner, I said, "No, thank you. No interest in that. What else you have
Of
for me?"
course, of course.
you know so day two, I sit down to do it again and I get the same message. So 5 days in a row. Now, mind you, I was actually asking, where is my purpose at this point in time? Because I kind of was at a crossroads. I'm recovering from this surgery. I'd shut down my design business to recover and also to study for my feng shui certification. Our son had graduated from college and moved to Chicago to start his life. So there were a lot of major, I just turned 50, there was a lot of really major transitions in my life. And I'm like, where am I supposed to go? Because I feel like where I am is perhaps not the right spot, but I'm not sure which way to pivot. And that was my pivot, to write a book. So I argued for a full week and I said, no, thank you. And then finally on the fifth day, I said, okay, fine. You know, if you want me to write a book, what am I writing a book about? I have no idea. What am I supposed to do here? And I just got told to start writing down what would happen to me. And then to start going backwards in my life and think about events that had happened since childhood and start writing those down too. And that's where all the dots started connecting to each other. And that's where the realization came that, oh my goodness, I've been able to see people who've passed since I was a kid. But it never occurred to me that not everybody had that. I just didn't
It's
talk about it because I just
it was
assumed
natural as it
everyone
passed.
can do this. Can't
Yeah,
everyone see who's died?
yeah, exactly.
You don't know. So that's kind of how everything started unfolding. And that's the way I ended up in Sedona. I got woken up in the middle of the night with the word Sedona. 10 days later, I owned a house in Sedona. And I
Wow.
didn't even really know where it was when it started. So once I started surrendering to spirit, God, universe, whatever the word is for you, for the higher power that hopefully, we're all a part of, then the story kind of unfolded on its own because more things kept happening and more things kept happening. And that's how we get to the title.
Okay.
You
Well,
know?
let's take a little step back because you
Sure.
kind of skipped over this. You were an interior decorator,
Yes.
and in my opinion, it's a natural growth to go from making people's house beautiful and functional and moving into feng shui. Now, for those people who are listening here around the world who are not quite sure what feng shui is, uh, in my understanding, and I met some people, masters who have done it, it's a way, well, I'll let you explain where it came from a little bit, but it's a way on how to set your house up. You've used the term energetically. So uh, I know enough to say I'm not supposed to sit with my back to the door. I know that I'm not supposed to have the staircase going down and out the front door. I know that I have to put a mirror up to reflect the energy back. I know a few details like that. So just to step back a little bit and tell people
Mhm.
what exactly is feng shui. And then the second we're going to go after that is you got what I call the cosmic nudge. Everybody who's been on this show, who's had an awakening, an awareness, has had similar serious events in their life. And then, as you've mentioned, you know, meditation is the way, the door open. All of a sudden, there's all these celestial people willing to help you. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I know Michael shows up. I got a picture of him around here somewhere. He's appeared to me as well. But let's step back a little bit and very briefly tell people how, when this practitioner came to your house and started pointing out some things around your house, how to change and energize your house, because everybody right now is thinking, well, how can I do that for my place?
Sure.
Let's give us a few pointers. But how did you, sorry, how did she set up your house, or how did you discover this amazing, I have my place function up. I have my door over here, so I'm facing the doors and things
You
like
are
that.
in command, and I can see the solid wall behind you. So good job. it,
And there's a
it does.
plant, and there's a fountain somewhere, and there's a
Good.
square someplace. Anyway, so let's just step back a little bit and quickly educate the audience in a minute and tell us about feng shui.
Absolutely. Well, feng shui is a 4 to 6,000 year old Chinese art form. It's a practice, it's a modality. And it started when the emperors hired these people to go out and find like the most auspicious location of land for their temples, for their burial sites, for that kind of thing. And then it kind of trickled out from there. So as it was working for the emperors, then, more and more of the population wanted to find the most auspicious location for their things. And the way that I find that people understand it in the most simplistic way possible is if you are looking at a mountain and you have the option to build your house at the very top, in the middle, or at the bottom, which is the best location? You would think at the top, right? Oh, you're going to get these grand views, but you can also have unseen forces like wind, which feng actually translates to wind, which translates to energy. So this unseen force, like a gale wind, could come and blow your structure over. If you choose right by the bottom, let's say there's a river running by the bottom. Oh, let's do the bottom because then the water's right there. Well, then you can have seen forces because shui equals water, and a water can rise, as we all know. There can be a flood, and that can take your house away. So the actual correct answer is somewhere in the middle. You have the protection of the mountain behind your home, and you're still accessible to where the water is available to you, but it's not going to take your house down the road or the river. So it's finding that balance. So sometimes I do suggest moving around furniture. Sometimes I don't touch the furniture at all. It all depends on what's going on in a person's home energetically. What you described are definitely some feng shui basics, and there's some, great ones. Always look at your front door. The front door is the mouth of qi, and that is how your home takes in nutrients, just like we take in nutrients through our mouth. Our home takes in nutrients through the front door. So I always tell people that is the first place to start. What's going around? Are your light bulbs burned out? A lot of times when I have consultations, because I do consultations all over the world, I can go in person or I can do them on Zoom. It's all the same to me. So, we start at the front, they take their FaceTime with them, and they walk me through their house. And we look at everything, what's going on by your front door? Is there a pile of shoes to where you can't open the door the entire way? That could be blocking opportunities. If you're telling me you're burnt out, where are the burnt out light bulbs? Is the paint chipping? Does the door hardware stick? You have no idea how many times I hear, I feel stuck, whether it's in a career, a relationship, or something else. And sure enough, I'll walk to the front door and that front door hardware is sticking. Sometimes it's that literal, not always, but sometimes. So it's
it's a
looking at
reflection of the
all
person.
those. Well, you reflect your home and your home reflects you. So if you don't say a word to me and I just see your space, I can probably gather a pretty good picture of what is going on with you and the people who live in that home and the life that's happening in that home. Just because that is what my training has taught me to do, and my intuition, of course, as well. I use my intuition a lot.
Yeah, I found that a lot of feng shui practitioners, well, a lot, the few I've spoken to, some internationally known, they have a very keen way of intuitively knowing things. So people I know in near Madrid were having trouble selling in their property.
Mm-hmm.
And they called up their feng shui master in the Middle East who said, go so many paces away from the house, drive a stake in the ground, change things around from east to west or something like that. And their house sold a week later.
I love
It,
that. No,
it,
I mean,
it,
it really does. It
yeah.
does work. I found that with my own home. And so therefore, that's what made me, it wasn't until I worked on my own home and felt it that I knew that I had to bring that modality and help others, because I also wanted to make sure before I trained and spent a year getting certified and everything else that I wanted to see that it worked. And it's not transactional though. A lot of people do feel that it's transactional. I put my orchid in my wealth corner, so my money's going to show up tomorrow. It's not necessarily transactional. What it is you are intentionally creating opportunities for yourself by what you are
Influence,
doing in your space.
right?
Correct.
It influences, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you call yourself a light worker, and in your book, and certainly you're a brilliant light here on the show. I'm sure everybody's fascinated with how you started as a traditional corporate business woman getting into feng shui, and then the next step was you had an injury that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't life-threatening, but it was pretty serious. And again, many people I know, including myself, have had such a turnaround point. And so in the next segment, we're going to talk more about that. So how can people get a hold of you, by the way, for consultations or to get a copy of your book?
Sure. My book is sold everywhere. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, my website, all of that. Consultations, you can go to my website, AlejandraBrady.com, or you can find me on Instagram. I had to kind of choose one and just be active on one because I can't do that many socials, but I'm very active on Instagram. So I'm Alejandra Brady, Alejandra G. Brady Lifestyled on Instagram.
Okay, I'll think Instagram, meaning it must be feng shui perfect for you. So it's okay.
It's
We got,
visual, which helps.
yeah, okay. Hold that thought. We'll be right back.